Okay.
Hello and welcome to Glendale Community College's speaker series. We are excited to have you join us live from home. My name is Isel Silva and I'm the Director of Career Services here at GCC. Today we are looking forward to talking with our first speaker of the spring 2021 semester. Our goal is to get a different perspective from industry leaders to share their leadership experience and transformation. Before we get started, for our audience members watching from home, please feel free to add your questions in the comments section, and we will be able to include those towards the end of the presentation before we close up our time with our guest speaker.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give a little background on our speaker today. Dr. Omar A has close to 15 years of public health expertise in the areas of community engagement and coalition building, health policy, and evidence-based research related to chronic and infectious diseases. He earned a doctorate in public health policy and management and a master of public health and epidemiology from the University of Arizona. He possesses strong analytical and critical skills as an accomplished public health official and policy advisor. Dr. Escontrias is dedicated to maximizing access to healthcare to the vulnerable populations of Arizona by addressing sociopolitical policies that impede optimal health. Dr. Escontrias is the founding member of ConTrias Policy Associates, a nonprofit organization that provides health and educational policy consulting. Dr. Escontrias is currently the Senior Director of Policy Research at the American Dental Education Association, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C. At the ADEA, Dr. Escontrias is instrumental in identifying and raising awareness of policy priorities impacting academic dentistry. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. And so what we like to do at the very beginning of these is just a few minutes of what we call rapid fire questions. So it's just to shake out the nerves and get to know you a little bit more. Okay. So bear with us. We have a few questions, but hopefully it'll be fun to start us out. So our first rapid fire question: which travel destination is your favorite, or would you like to go one day?
Ooh, so my husband and I had the privilege of traveling to Italy in 2019, and we traveled up to Rome and northern Italy. But definitely it's a place I would like to go again, especially because of the food. I am a foodie, so I like to taste as much as different variety, and Italy has a variety of various cuisines that you could taste. So definitely would like to go back there.
Awesome. Which leader do you admire the most?
I know that this is part of the question, but my mother. She is a single parent, and she raised two wonderful children, single-handedly, and she has been my guiding star since I can remember. So I would choose my mother.
Awesome. What is one positive thing you do for yourself on a daily basis?
Ooh, I actually started this during as my New Year's resolution, and I've been keeping up with it. I do meditation every morning. Before I get out of bed, I try to at least meditate 5 minutes. Just take time to clear your mind and get a head start of the day.
Awesome. I love that. I love that self-care. What is your favorite food? You said you're a foodie, so this might be hard to answer or just pick one, but if you could, what is your favorite food?
My mom's pozole, my beef pozole. I love it.
Awesome. Fill in the blank. In one word, leadership is?
Vital.
Perfect. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our questions. So if you could, tell us about yourself and your current position.
Sure. So thank you again for having me today. It's really an honor just to share my journey with you and with all who are tuning in. So I'd like to start off saying that I am an immigrant. I was born in Mexico. At the age of 6, I immigrated with my mother. I was raised in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, which is in the border town of El Paso, Juarez. And we immigrated to Tucson, Arizona. So since the age of 6, I was raised, went to school in Arizona, and I accomplished my undergraduate, my master's, and my doctorate at the University of Arizona. But I think what's unique here is that I really didn't know the value of education. And my mom, with an 8th grade education, she really instilled in us, and meaning my brother and I, about the importance of education and just furthering yourself, because she always expressed to me that, education is one thing that no one can take away from you, and that is yours. And up until high school, I should start back. Going through elementary school, I really struggled a bit because I didn't have a good command of the English language. They wanted to set me back, and it's one of those things that my mom was a fighter for me and for my brother. She really encouraged me to go in and take ESL classes so I could further myself and make sure that I could catch up to my other peers. And it has been a struggle throughout my educational career, but it's something that just made me stronger. And going into high school and prepping for college, it was not always a thing for us to understand what it's like to apply to college. It wasn't in our mix to apply to college, and we just have to work hard in order to get into college and to understand what are the opportunities, what are the financial opportunities that could be provided for you at that age. And so, with just hard work, it could be done. And, I was fortunate to have some mentors throughout my educational career, which hopefully we'll talk a little bit more on that, on how those mentors came to shape my professional career. But even to now, I have professional mentors, not just those that help me out through my educational settings. But I'm very fortunate that I am here because someone has given me an opportunity. But know that when they give you the opportunity, you also have to work hard for that opportunity and for you to make sure that you put the best work for possible. And how that shapes into my current position as the Senior Director of Policy Research with the American Dental Education Association, as Dakota mentioned. My role is to identify critical issues that are impacting academic dentistry, meaning we work with our US and Canadian dental schools on how to best support our faculty members, but also the dental students that are going to be prepared to be the next oral health professionals tomorrow. So there's various topics, from how do we help raise awareness on the opioid crisis, on COVID-19, on also recruiting and improving the pipeline of underserved and represented communities into careers in the dental profession. So my overall position really does entail doing policy research, data analytics, but also informing how this research can take on to change policy and the minds of policymakers to improve the oral health of America.
That's amazing. Our next question is, what does success mean to you?
So in my field of policy, we have this thing that is called the difference between the big P and the little p, meaning big policy change from the government, from state, and little p from policies that could change in the institutional setting, in small academic settings. And that's how I also view success. You have the big S and you have a little s. Big success is when you feel like you have accomplished your ultimate dreams and goals, right? Whatever that may be, whatever you believe is big for you. And the little s is really, for me, even just waking up every morning. I think we have to be blessed that that's a success. Oftentimes I think we are so caught up, even now in these times in the world, and you just have to be blessed in the morning and say that, hey, I woke up, and that is a success for many of us. And it's just, everyone has a different level of success, but I think what makes you feel great inside, and that you have contributed to a positive outcome, whatever that may be, that should be measured as a success for you.
I love that. You kind of touched on this in your introduction to yourself, but one of the questions we were going to ask are, what are some barriers that you have had to endure over your career journey? So I know you touched upon some personal, but and maybe if you missed any, you can add those, but maybe also professional as well.
So I think in my personal as well, oftentimes in many settings that I've been the only person of color, and oftentimes there's a sense that you don't belong in this space. And that could be very detrimental to someone who comes from an underserved background, underprivileged background, a poor background. We were poor growing up, and we never knew that we were poor because it wasn't that you are poor, Omar. My mom made the best of every possibility, and she made us aware that we could do anything if we just put our hard work and mind into it. But those struggles just do become evident later on in your career, because you do understand that when you're faced with other opportunities or other individuals that may have had it better, you now feel that, there's something that's different from myself and to my other peers. And how that transcends into my professional career is that there's still spaces where I am the only person of color, or oftentimes, in my professional career, and I could say in my collegiate careers, I was always a good student. I wasn't always the best, but I was always a great student. And my undergraduate was in molecular and cellular biology. And I remember as I got to my sophomore year, I really struggled with my genetics course. It was probably one of the hardest courses that I've taken in my life. And when I went for help, my professor said, you're probably not even ready for this. You should probably just go back to foundational biology, because you can't even understand the concepts of, just simple genetics. So how are you going to, be able to go through even your major? And that really hit me hard, because it was a struggle. But I forced myself to really get up to speed, and I did not get an A in the class. I still got a C in the class. But what made it stronger is that once I got to my upper division biochemistry and molecular courses, I aced those courses because I took the time that I knew that I was going to prove to this person that he was wrong and that I had the capacity to do anything. And I think oftentimes we face those challenges in academia, that you don't belong here, or even in your job, that you're doing this incorrectly. Maybe this is not the career for you. And the positive thing is that those should not define who you are or deter you from your path. You are destined to do what you're going to do. And if that's the place that you feel is your niche, then you go for it and you work for that. Because we will have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. But the thing is that you need to make weaknesses your strengths. And that's what's valuable. Your weaknesses will become your strengths. And they might not come in a year, 2 years. God, I still have probably a lot of weaknesses that I'm working on. But that's just life. It's a cycle of life. But just know that life keeps moving forward. And I think that's a great thing to really keep in mind, in your professional career, that you oftentimes will not feel you belong there. Or me, who is a immigrant, Mexican, Latino, gay male, sometimes you might feel the imposter syndrome that goes on for many of us that are of color. And again, it's because you might have the sense that you don't belong here, but in reality, you do. You do belong in these spaces. And if you find yourself that you're not in a space, then you make that space for yourself.
Wow, how great for our students to hear that. Like, that just gave me goosebumps. Like, it's so important for our students to know that you belong where you belong, and you just gotta keep chugging along and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I know this wasn't in our questions, but you had mentioned something really interesting in regards to the imposter syndrome, which I connected with that with you on that, because I remember feeling that in my own career in some cases. So, if you've experienced imposter syndrome yourself, like, what did you do personally to overcome that? I know you talked about believing in yourself and changing, but I don't know. It really stuck with me when you said that, because I think there's a lot of young professional and young people, or people moving along in their career, and they find themselves, right? Like, they're ready to move on to the next level. When they get there, there's that sense of like, oh my gosh, like, can I do this? Am I supposed to be here? So I'm just curious to see what helped you maybe move through that in your career.
That's a great question. And one thing that always has helped me is that my mom, from a young age, she instilled in us to say, remember who you are and where you belong and where you come from, and having those words just resonate over and over in my mind, knowing that I do belong in a certain place, is that mind could play tricks on you. But understand that whatever mantra may be with you or that you go by, follow that mantra. But also, it's okay to talk to someone. It's okay to talk to a friend, to a family member. I'm not saying to put out, if you don't want to put your business all out there. I apologize because my dog is barking, but that's the world of video and Zoom. Is that feel free to talk to someone, reach out, because I think oftentimes when it's imposter syndrome is that it's your mind playing tricks on you. And sometimes if you let it win, it will win. And when you effectively communicate that with somebody else, they will remind you of your worth and your value. And not that you need someone to tell you that, but oftentimes I think we need a little affirmation, for ourselves. So don't be afraid to reach out to anyone, because there's nothing wrong with that. And I did when I had an encounter, even at in one of my professional careers. I felt, well, maybe my writing skills are not up to par, and because I still have the English as a second language, I had to learn how to command the language. And now when I look back at my writing, I say, this is great writing. Why do I not believe in that? And sometimes I have someone else tell me, you do write well, or you do express yourself in this type of way. So it's important to have someone to talk to, so don't feel like you're alone. You're not alone. There's someone that will understand where you're coming from.
Going along with having someone to talk to, I know you said that you look up to your mom a lot, and you also said that you have some mentors that have come into your life as a professional. I want to kind of expand more on how you got a mentor, how you utilize a mentor, and the importance of mentorship in your life.
Mm-hmm. I think mentorship is very important. As you go on into your professional career, or even if you're going into, if you're at a community college, if you're at a four-year institution, or you're going to, post-secondary education, it's important to have a mentor, because that's also who's going to help guide you in your ultimate track of pathway. But not only is it important to have an academic mentor, but also professional mentors that help you along the way when you are now in the workforce. And those could be even leaders within your own institution that could help you grow and make you understand maybe a concept that you don't fully have a hand on. For me, I believe it started in my undergraduate when I was on the path to go to medical school. Ultimately, I did not go to medical schools, but I went to graduate school. But I was very involved in biomedical research, and one of my first mentors, I thought I couldn't apply to this program. And he's the one who reached out and said, I think, I've seen you in my class. I think you should apply to this program, which is called Maximizing Access to Research Careers, or the acronym is called MARC, the MARC program at the U of A. And they only take about maybe 10 students, 20 total for 2 years. And I said, I don't think I qualify for this. I don't think I could get in. He's like, whatever, just try it. You have some sort of foundation in biomedical research. I think you should try it. Go for it. There's going to be an interview process. Just do it. I was like, okay. But I had him to guide me. I had someone who invested in me and said, we believe in you. We think you have the foundation to do this program. And I did, and I was accepted. But during that time, I was also working full-time as a taxi dispatcher. So I worked for a cab company during my first 2 years of college to help my mom and put myself through college. And I was working the graveyard shift Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So then I would go to school Monday morning, with just working all 36 hours, in the weekend, overnight. And I remember that call that this mentor gave me, and he said, you no longer work in a cab, now you work in a lab, and those words were just so, it was just inspiring to me, because I didn't think I had a chance, but someone took a chance on me. And I think mentors are important in that role. And as I go on into my professional career, there's been other mentors in graduate school and my professional career. But what I want to make clear is that don't be afraid to reach out as well. If you see someone that, the work that they're doing, one of your professors, or even someone at work, if you want to say, go in a management position and you're not quite there yet, but you want to learn more from that position, take a chance on understanding what that takes, what it entails, and ask that person, can you help me? Can you help me understand this concept? Can you help me understand how to work the cash register? How do I become a better phone operator so that I could make sure I dispatch cabs more effectively at 3 a.m. in the morning? So it always takes you questioning. I think mentorship is a two-way relationship. It takes you to go out there, but it also for mentors to to take some investment in yourself. And I think mentors not always stick around. There is a cycle that mentors may help you maybe in your just undergraduate and then your graduate. There's mentors that last for a long time. So make sure that mentors work, that you or both are able to mutually work in a relationship that could be beneficial for both.
Awesome. I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I just realized that we never asked the question, what does it mean to be a leader? Like, what does that mean to you to be a leader?
Sure. For me, a leader is definitely helping improve procedures and take the reins to improve processes, however you want to define processes. But I think what's important for me as being a leader is only as strong as his team or her team. And oftentimes I think we have this notion of authoritarian leaders and that you must do what I tell you, and so you lead on. I believe in collective leadership, meaning that once you get out into the workforce and you transition from college onto a leadership position, you're going to be working with teams. So it's important for you to be a collaborative leader and really understand how you could leverage the resources and expertise from other members in your team. And if you are a great leader, you will give the opportunity also for your team to excel. Because you have to remember, if your team excels, you excel as a leader. But again, the same way as mentorship, it goes both ways. You have to provide the tools and resources for your team to be successful in order for you to be successful. And you build that collaborative spirit among teams. And it could be, again, in the professional setting, or even it could be in your own group work or school work where you have to work in teams, where you might be like, well, I want to take the reins in this, or I want to take the lead in this specific part of the project, then go for it. We understand that oftentimes there's going to be individuals that might just want to tag along, but that's okay. It helps you understand that not everyone is up to speed to be a leader at that point. That doesn't mean that person who's tagging along is not a leader. They could become a leader later on, but they're probably just not ready at that point. But I think by just showing the example of what an effective leadership is, then you're able to set that role for them future and inspire them.
Along with this, I think it's very interesting. We might not realize that we're leaders. What point in your life did you realize that you are a leader? Was it young in your, younger professional years, in school, or was it something that you just recently realized?
Oh, that's such a good question. Because I have to take it back a little bit to, again, my personal experience, with my mom, who was single, raising 2 kids, and being monolingual Spanish speaker, and me having to translate or take on some of the roles, growing up as some Latino, communities, that whoever's the oldest, you kind of take the reins and you go in and take the leadership, but you don't know that you're actually being a leader and that you're helping your family in this way. That you just do it. And later on, as I thought about it, it's like I was a leader at that point, because I was making sure that, again, my family needed to be successful in whether it was in having optimal healthcare, making sure that they had employment, making sure that they were just taken care of. And you don't always see that. And I'm just not saying also Latino families, because I think it resonates across all families where you take the leadership role and oftentimes you just don't know that that's what you're doing, and once you get onto your professional or your collegiate career, then that role kind of kicks back again, and it keeps going and going and going. And then later on, as you get into the professional setting, you start proposing projects. Because of how the world has shaped you and your life experiences, you start proposing projects of looking at things differently. And that's what really makes you a leader. Everyone is a different leader. There's types of leadership that we all fall into, but there's no person that is the same leader. And it's because it's shaped by your life experiences. And whether that might be good or bad life experiences, there's still experiences that will shape you to be the type of leader that you want to be. And so I think that's from early on, I caught out that I was a leader, but I never knew it was until now into my professional career, where I've been successful in leading teams, or even guiding research projects, or even still hopefully serving as a mentor for other students that are coming up the pipeline, whether they're in their graduate school or whether they're in their undergraduate. It's important for me to kind of give back, and I think with the opportunity to be a leader, it doesn't need to always be in a professional setting. You could be a leader in church. You could be a leader at school. Join a club. You could run for office in one of your clubs. You could join a Greek-led organization, a sorority or fraternity, which I was part of a fraternity during my graduate school. So it really depends on how you want to take on that role as a leader.
I love that you share that, because I think oftentimes a lot of people think leaders are these people that hold these high positions, right? But I think it's important for individuals to also understand that everyone is a leader and everybody has a potential of being a leader. And it's fun to see you reflecting back like, oh my gosh, what I was doing with my mom and translating and being an advocate for that, like that is leadership. And you're right, leadership can happen in all aspects of life. One of the things that you talked about one of the things that you mentioned was like giving back. So I kind of want to go into the realm of asking questions where you can maybe share some insight to our audience, right? So one of the questions that we want to ask are what you believe are the keys to developing the next generation of leaders in your world.
I think first is to accept who you are. That's number one. You have to believe in who you are and what you have to offer, because everyone has something to offer to this world. And I hope it doesn't sound too cliche, but I think even with the pandemic, and me having studied infectious diseases, it has turned our world upside down in the way that we communicate, the way we engage, the way we work. I mean, we're doing this virtually. And so I think part of the key of being, successful is knowing who you are and also taking a chance. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because those mistakes are always going to make you a better person. You learn from them and then you move on. And also have a sense of belonging and self-care. You have to take care of yourself. Because you can't provide anything without actually you taking care of yourself. And I have to admit that I have never always been the person that's like, yeah, I mentioned earlier that I practice meditation. I wasn't, I could admit that oftentimes I was a person who always was negative or say no all the time. My response was always no and no. Well, Omar, what? No, Omar, no, and I have to make sure to really reflect on that, because that's really not adding any value to the future. And I think before you respond with a no, I think you have to, how about you propose an alternative or your different viewpoint, so that the other person that's engaging with you in the conversation will be able to understand where you're coming from. So those are some of the key things to for a leader in the world of tomorrow. But I think the main one is it's accept who you are, because you're going to be happy by accepting who you are, and you're going to be able to provide better opportunities for the future generation.
You said something within your response is kind of learning from your mistakes, right? And as you probably know, no leadership journey is always perfect, right? There's always probably challenges that we face as leaders. So what has been one of the most challenging things that you have faced as a leader, and what did you do to help overcome that challenge?
One of the things that I could recall recently is that I deal with data, and I could admit that I did a wrong analysis, and unbeknownst to me, that analysis did go further, and we were able to catch it on time. But I had to own up to that mistake, later on as I caught it, and I went back and tracked what mistake I did and where the error came, and said, "Oh yeah, I did do that mistake. I apologize. This will not happen again." But that really now allowed me to put best practices in place of how do I double check this work when I know that these stakeholders are going to be involved in decision making that are going to be using my data or the work, right? Because once it gets out into the public, this was still internal, then there's really no pulling back, right? Like, it's out there, it's for public record. So you potentially have to send out a statement, but I made an error and I had to accept it. And the first thing that I wanted to do is like, no, we could patch it, but you never want to do that with data, right? That's manipulation of data, and you never want to do that. So what you have to do is really accept that there was a mistake, but own into it. And that's going to make you also an effective leader, because that just shows that you are able to own up to a mistake and rectify it, and making sure that you don't do it down the road, right? So I think that's one of, because they still happen, and I'm not sure if they're not going to happen again, but I could tell you that I have put things in place so that that's harder for it to happen.
Absolutely. I think it's important for us to know we are going to make mistakes eventually along our career paths. It's just, we're human. It's something that happens, but owning up to it absolutely is the best option to get, through that time.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I also felt effective as a leader in my professional setting is that don't be afraid to communicate with your supervisor or your boss. If they have that open policy or open door policy, talk to them, have an open conversation and dialogue, because that's going to also help you build the relationship that you have with your leader, if that's who you aspire to be. Or they could also see opportunities where you're taking leadership roles that could help them in your promotion or in other, type of opportunities that might come your way. So always be okay with having an open dialogue, because the more transparent that you are, the better it's going to be with you in the long run.
Going along with, the next generation in leadership, how do you feel like your leadership changes when you're interacting with different generations between, Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, and you probably even interact with some people who fall in that baby boomer category? How does your leadership change when you're interacting with the different generations?
In my public health training, we're really taught to tailor messaging to an array of communities, whether it's from the baby boomers, whether it's the Gen Z. I think what is important is you understanding the audience, and who that audience is and how you effectively are going to communicate with them, because that's ultimately is going to make the greater impact. For example, potentially I might want to tailor some messaging to the younger generation that involves technology or media space, social media. Our baby boomers may not be having even a computer or know how to navigate the computer or the internet. So you have to understand what will probably be the best effective way to communicate with them. And that's how leadership really also shapes. You have to understand the audience, because it's not like a one key fits all. You have to learn how to strategize when you're communicating, when you're leading. But at the same way, take the opportunity to learn, because you could learn from the baby boomer generation. There's so much that they could teach you. And you could also learn from the Gen Z. I could tell you, I could think I'm social media savvy, but sometimes my friends will be like, and I only have like Facebook or Instagram, they'll be like, yeah, there's Snapchat, there's this or that. So like, whoa, 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 like, okay, that's already too much. I can barely navigate Facebook, but I could learn so much from that generation because they're so quick and savvy with the modern technology. But that's ultimately what's moving also our generations forward, right? The evolution of technology. So I think you tailor messaging accordingly, but also take the opportunity to learn from them and hear them and how you could best implement your own practices.
I love that. I'm glad you brought that up, Dakota, because right now our workforce is so diverse, right? We are crossing so many different generations. So it's great to hear that perspective and really being open to learning from all, because everybody has something to contribute, right? All right. So another question, what wisdom can you share with our students or our audience members who are completing their degree and embarking on their leadership journey?
I think again is take a deep breath and remember who you are and accept who you are. Be accepting of yourself, please. You are unique in your own way, and that is going to help you in your overall long-term career and transition. But also, I think some of the best practices that I wish someone would have told me earlier on is that when you engage in leadership board or in leadership, maybe that might be serving on boards or serving on various communities. I wish someone would have told me to understand the Robert's Rules of Order, and that is one key that when you're in leadership or when you're sitting on boards, I didn't understand the Robert's Rules of Order until probably into later in my years of college, because I wasn't really introduced to that. But it's the parliamentary way of just how you run businesses and how you run meetings, in business meetings. So I think there's a short, brief version of the Robert's Rules that you could take on how to, really help with meetings in the future that you're engaged as a leader. But I think it'll be a good source for you to take a look at, and ultimately, I think know that if at the end of the day, you feel that you have made an impact on someone's life, whatever that may be, then you're already on to the win. It doesn't have to be directly associated, but you could always indirectly impact someone's life, whether you send them a text, whether you, solve the climate crisis, or whether you provided affordable healthcare and equitable healthcare across America. It doesn't have to be that big, but know that whatever change you could go and do on a day-to-day basis, then you're already a winner. And know that if you come up with a positive attitude every day, that is going to transition into your life and into your professional career. And know that there will be challenges. It's not always easy, but for that person that always works hard, the opportunities will come. Believe me, they will. You just have to put in the time and be patient, because sometimes it's not the gratifications are not going to be immediate, but be patient and they will come to you, but you just have to put in the time.
We have our first audience question. Lindsay says, since growing into a leader can be a journey and having lofty goals can seem far off for students, what is one simple action step students can do daily to begin to shape themselves into a leader?
Sure. One of the things that I also started doing is every day, do a positive affirmation for yourself. Just one. Do a positive affirmation every day that you could live up to, and know that because you put in that goal for yourself, you're going to have to accomplish it, because no one else is putting on that goal on you except for yourself. So if you do a positive affirmation and set a goal for yourself in every day, you're already on to accomplishing probably better than half the world. So I think that's a good way. And then also for students, I think it's a good way for you to have a short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals. It's okay for you to put that. put them up in the wall, put them up in the board, put them up in, do a Word document which you see those goals, because the more you read those goals and the more you want to accomplish them, they will come a reality. And like I said, it might not be immediately, but they will come a reality. You just have to put it out in the universe. And I really a strong believer. You could change them. Maybe your short-term goals may become your intermediate, and then intermediate may become your long-term goals. But they're your goals that are for you, and that is something that you have control over, and that's the only one who's going to master it. And remember, I think one positive thing also is that it's okay to be a masterpiece, but at the same time be a work in progress. So you could be both, and keep that in mind. You could be a masterpiece, but it's always a work in progress.
I love that. I have never heard that before, and I am going to start using it. But I feel like there's this theme happening, like this sense of positive affirmations and putting your goals and believing in it. It sounds like there's that sense of just putting work in yourself to hopefully see that it will start emulating and are manifesting in all these wonderful ways. So I love that you're mentioning about positive affirmations, because it's like, how often do we actually do that for ourselves, right? Like, how often do we wake up and do these daily affirmations? And it may seem silly for a lot of people at first, but I'm sure the more you do it, the more you start believing in it. And as you start believing in yourself, that probably allows you to do wonderful things. So I love all of those little pieces that you're
Sure.
Or little pieces of nuggets you're sharing with us.
And there's a really good book, and if you have a Costco membership, not that I'm putting a plug to Costco, but that's where I bought it. It's called Tiny Little Habits, or I think Tiny Little Things. I have to go back, but I could share it with you, Dakota, later on if you want to share it on. But it's by the psychologist, and he also guides you on how to make those positive affirmations every day. And you could start with a small goal. So saying, before I plant my feet on the floor, when I get up from bed, I will say, today will be a great day. And if you know that it may not be that great of a day, you could retweak that and say, today's going to be a great day somehow. So it's still keeping the positive affirmation to it, but throughout 2020, every day I woke up and said, when I planted my feet up on the floor, on my bed, I said, today is going to be a great day. And even though I may not have the greatest day, I may part of it be a great day. So it's really just to have those positive affirmations, because I think nowadays we just have been bombarded with so much information that how do you even navigate this complex world that we're in? And it's just really important to really take that on. And one thing that I did want to share that I probably forgot is that don't wait till also someone tells you to be a leader. During the pandemic, I could share that there was so much misinformation being fueled by different media outlets or people just in general about, what the pandemic was, what the vaccine is, all of these things. And I'm not here to say any of that, but what I'm here to say is that I knew that I had this expertise in public health. So I took it upon myself to download data, analyze the data, export it, and put it on my own social media platform so that people had a better understanding of what were the trends in Arizona, what was occurring, were we going up or down, what were the cases for that day, what were the deaths for that day. But I took that upon myself because I knew that there was some issue that I was passionate about, which was public health and making sure that there was accurate information being disclosed to the public. And that's a type of leadership. No one told me to do it. I just said, hey, I have this skill set. Why not use it for good use? Because there's so much misinformation, and then later on, it just got too much that it was just all over the place, but you took the initiative. And I think that may have helped people somehow be calmer and understanding of what was the current state of the state, with the pandemic. So don't wait till anyone tell you, to do something. Know that you have a unique skill set, whatever that may be, and just go ahead and use it of great value out to the community.
I love that. I think that's a great way or a great place to wrap. We were going to ask you, what can students do today? But I think you kind of answered that, right? Like, don't wait for the opportunities to come to you. Go out and make those opportunities for yourself. So with that, thank you so much, Dr. Escontrias, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share about your transformational journey from college to leadership. For our viewers, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion and that you'll join us this spring semester as we continue to bring a new speaker every single month directly to you.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And while we're here, of course, I'm going to put a social media plug. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube, since we're viewing it on YouTube. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, I'm sure we can connect you with our brilliant speaker.
Yep. And with that, we'll sign off, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month for our next leadership speaker. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.